Hello guys, this is IYRE and welcome to my YouTube channel. Um, so today we are going to have a look at Fragments, my debut single which was released as a part of FULLFAT01 compilation which was released by Goldfat Records on March 19th. This track happens to be the first track of the compilation as well, so um, I thought of sharing the creative process of this track in terms of the drums and then the bass, and then of course with the instrumentation. So yeah, um, let's dive on to it. First and foremost, I thought of going through the drums, of course, that I have used in this track. um, I'm just going to unmute the rest. It's a pretty simple drum pattern, to be really honest. If I play it right now, so the primary drum pattern is this. um, First I think I worked on the snare. Yeah, this is a serum snare, something I synthesized on serum, um, out of a bass drum sine wave. um, there's three forms of LFOs that I've used for this sound, and each of these LFOs have their own purpose, I would say. The first LFO, of course, it's controlling the level of the sine wave, and LFO2, if we go to the matrix, it's controlling the coarse pitch, you can see over here. And then LFO3, of course, controls the noise oscillator. um, it's a pretty standard snare to build on. So if we move on to the FX sections, I've used distortion, compressor, and an equalizer to bring out the harmonics a little bit. um, Distortion, of course, I've used tube distortion, a pretty high rate to be it honest, and then of course compressor on multiband, and then the equalizer, as you can see. So that's how the snare is made. And then if you move on to the bass drum, this is how the bass drum looks like using another B design. Each of these LFOs have their own purpose, just like the snare drum. Pretty similar to the process of creating a snare drum, I would say. Controlling the level, LFO2 controls the master tuning. These where the synthesizing process differs from that of a snare. Instead of controlling the coarse pitch, I'm controlling the master tuning. And then LFO3 controls the noise oscillator. I've used the pink noise. In terms of the FXs, distortion, and a little bit of compression by using the multiband mode. So that's pretty much it. And then the snare is layered with another high kind of a snare, and then of course this percussive sound, so that I can provide a more organic feel to the drums instead of going for that precise synthetic feel. And yeah, that's basically how the main elements of the drums are organized. And if you move on to the samples that I've used to layer the drums, um, this is there, and then this hi-hat pattern, and then I'm using this snare, reverb snare, to provide a little bit of texture. And at the second phrase of the first drop, I'm adding this loop as well. Yeah, and then towards the drop 2, I'm introducing this shaker, and then a very important element, which is this this synth like snare. I actually originally intended to make this like make this a snare to be relevant, so that I can layer this with the original snare, but then I decided to use this as a synth instead of as a snare. The difference is this level knob. When I make a snare, this level is pretty much or modulating from 0 to 100, but in this case it's modulating from 100 to 0, which is why you get the noise as in the sound. So this snare basically follows the main snare as a tastemaker, and then if you go to the effects of this synth sound, I've used tube distortion, added a little bit of reverb, a compressor, and then delay, which is being controlled by the macro over here, and then a filter, which is being controlled by macro 2. So as the track progresses, I think you would be able to hear some movement, specifically towards the intermission, and then towards the drop 2. I'm using this sound as a variation. The delay and the filter that I showed you earlier in the effects sections are going to get modulated, and in addition I've used a Valhalla shimmer to provide some additional texture. So this is how it sounds. The filter is being used over here, and then shimmer is being introduced. There we go. And then the delay macro is getting automated. And then it gets layered over the main drum, just like that. And when you come towards certain intermissions or phrases, it adds a little bit of variation like this. There we go. Yeah, so that's how it sounds like. And then finally I've added this very synthetic sounding, I don't know what I can call this, to be honest. It's just a basic sound, so waveform running over a filter, a high pass filter, and then it has a bit of distortion going on as well, and a basic waveform in this shape, controlling both these oscillators, and it sounds really nice. I've seen this technique being used by artists like Joe Ford, where he uses the high end to sit certain frequencies in the spectrum, so that he can effectively sit certain frequencies inside the spectrum, and when it sounds all together, it sounds very massive and very pleasing to the a technique being used to introduce a precise level of saturation, I would say. Instead of depending on plugins, why not maybe introduce a certain frequency? Yeah. So this is kind of like the ideology I had by introducing this sound. Actually, I've been introducing this to most of my songs, to be honest. So yeah, so that's how the drums look like. Okay, then let's move on to the bass section. It's just a static note, but if we go to the pattern, a sine wave and a basic shape, it's mirroring, if you see over here, and of course it's modulating, just to introduce some sort of a movement. No effects, to be honest, on this one, and as of course, to make it liquidish, there's a low pass filter running, um, and the low pass filter is being modulated by using this macro. It's pretty basic. These are the pattern sounds like. To introduce a bit of more movement, I've introduced this sound as well. Mini bass and an RM shape running through distortion, not complicated at all. A basic LFO modulating the levels of oscillator A and oscillator B. So that's being layered with the sound that I showed you previously, which sounds together like this. And at the end of each phrase, and sound of each phrase, sorry, I muted my mic accidentally. Hehe. So at the end of each phrase, as you can see, the cutoff is being modulated just to introduce a little bit of excitement. And what else do we have? Okay. This sound is a sample. I'm using a sample over here. This is how it sounds like. There's a very basic EQ that's being run. Whoa, what happened? Yeah, so that's another sound that I've used. Let's see, what else do we have? Oh, okay, so this sound. Alright. Again, originally intended to make a snare, got too experimental with it, and then created this sound. What happens is modulating the chord pitch by using this LFO. You can see here. Worked well, to be honest. Worked well for my advantage. It sounds like a water drop is being dropped, and it echoes or like a hole or something. So it worked for my advantage. And then of course I think I did something else over there as well. Yeah, the same thing has been exported and added as a layer with an EQ, and then this dub plugin, which kind of adds a very pleasing delay, and then of course adding more stereo width. So that's how it looks like. Everything together sounds like that. Yeah, still it's the same waveform being modulated. So pretty simple, to be honest. The bass that I've used in this track, it's just basic sine waves, and then layered with other sorts of variations. Pretty standard. And then let's see. Okay. So this is being introduced. Let's see. There we go. Again, as you can see, just a so running over the macro. If we go to the FX, it's just basic drive. Sounds like this, and then let's be layered with sub, which follows the pattern. Pretty standard. And then again, you saw that I have used this macro to control the cutoff filter. So then that counts as the drop 2. Again, this the main bass patch has been exported and used here. So if we go to the signal chain, there's an EQ running, and then I've used trash too, so that I can introduce a little bit of distortion. It's not on multi-band, so it applies to the entire patch. And then split stereo to add some movement, a clipper to control the clipping, to control the gain, and then of course a filter so that I can use it. As you can clearly see here, this bass patch has been introduced by using a filter. There we go. And then everything together sounds like this. Then I've introduced this sound at the second phrase of the first drop. Pretty fun. So here we used basic CJW. I think it's from here we go. It's from the analog waveforms available on Serum. And then this transformer skew, I think this should be a sample that I may have dropped from my sample library. And then yeah, so there's a lot of movement going on inside of LFOs. LFO1 is controlling both the level knobs of oscillator 1 and oscillator 2. uh, there's movement on the pan knobs as well by using LFO2. Yeah, I think that's it. And if we go to the macro again, yeah, the cutoff filter is being controlled by macro 1. And if you go to the FXs, there's a distortion, there's a filter being introduced, and then there's a chorus being used as well. Yeah, it sounds fun, but I'm only using the first bit of that patch. If you can clearly see it, it'll sound like this. There we go. Yeah, so that's how it sounds like. And then I've added this little guy over the baseline that I've introduced. Let's see what this is. Yeah, it's a basic sine wave on unison. And then I've introduced this LFO. This is being used as a synth. And then if we move on to macro 1, let me see what it controls. Yeah, so macro 1 controls this filter, the cutoff of this filter. Macro 2 controls the delay. Yeah. The rest is pretty much similar. I think this is the final phrase of drop 2 is basically repetition of the final phrase of drop 1 with a few variations added, I would say. Yeah, so that's kind of how the bass looks like. It's very simple, very organic, um, a very basic form of filtering has been added, the cutoff filter, to be real honest, as you saw earlier. And that's how the bass looks like. We had a look at the drums, we had a look at the bass, and let's have a look at the instrumentation. It's pretty messy, to be honest, because there's a lot of things going on, and there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of reverse synths that's been used, but specifically talking, there's one sample based on which this entire track is built on, which is this. Yeah, so that's the sample. And if you have a look over here, that's basically the sample that I've used. It's being run through a filter set now. Yeah, So this is kind of where I realized that the sample can help me to introduce a certain hook to the track, which is where I introduced this synth. So that kind of follows the reverse sample. If I play them together over here, what the hell? Okay, there we go. There we go. So yeah, and then there's a variation of the same that has been introduced over here. It's on the lower octave, so that's kind of like the variation of the main sample. That's pretty much it, to be honest. Towards the second drop, I've used it as well over here. And this entire track is running through a filter, so the filter opens up and then the filter closes down, and additional textures are being opened and closed from the original sample. And if we move towards here, there we go. Yeah, so that's how the main sample looks like, and there's little bits that I've cut from the original sample that has been introduced in certain places, like this reverb tail. Yeah, so this comes from over here. So this part has been used to introduce additional textures to that main reverse sample. Yeah, everything together sounds like this. There's a lot of reverse sounds going on. Yeah, if you have a look over here. Yeah, so this is kind of like a reverse sample from a contact patch that I have, and let me see. Okay, or something over here, which is the same. Yeah. I've used the same sound in quite a few places as well. That's a sample that I've used. And there's a bit of reverses going here as well. There we go. And then the sound keeps on repeating from the intermission towards the first drop as well. And then there's bits and pieces of melodies that I've used. Some kalimba sounds, and then let me see what this is. Okay, yeah, so I think this comes from Sakura. So this is another native synth on FL Studio, and I came across this patch and I thought it can be used as a certain percussive element. As the name suggests, it's coconuts banging each other. And I decided to use this to introduce a bit of percussive elements to the track. So that's being, and then this is being followed by dang 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 dang. So that sound is being followed by this towards the end of each phrase or here. There we go. Yeah. So those are being layered together. There we go. If I mute the rest, it'll sound like this. Yeah, so that's how it sounds like. And then if we move on towards the other instruments that I've used, yeah, the coconuts are banging to each other pretty much in quite a few places actually. And then the intermission. So this should be a contact patch, and it's being sidechained. Yeah, so that's being sidechained by using an LFO tool, and the LFO tool is being triggered by using media out option on FL Studio. That's how I basically sidechain, really. And then we have this, which is from the same contact bank. Which kind of sounds like this. Yeah. The small pads that has been used, and what is this? Yeah, it's from Zebra. So this is probably one of my favorite synths ever. This and Serum. So from this there's a classic stringer patch, and I've used that to add an analog flavor to the track. You know, those 80s vibes. So that has been used. There's more patches that have been used, again from the same contact library, which is Vocalize. Yeah, so that's kind of how like the rise of the track looks like. We had a look at the bass variation that's been introduced on drop 2, and how I used a filter. What is this? Oh yeah, so this is from a contact library called Straight Edge. So that's being run through Guitar Rig, and we have Shimmer, which is kind of like my go-to huge reverb machine. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to explain or name this, but this is kind of how I use this whole reverb feel to most of my patches. I just use Shimmer. It's pretty handy as well. As clearly as you can see, you can control the mix. You can control what frequencies that the reverb is affected. You can use this feedback. You can use this shift knob, which shifts between semitones, which is really cool. And then a mod depth. I don't use much of these except for the frequencies, the size, and the mix. But it's fun. It's a fun plugin. And then guitar rig, very basic. Yeah, and in addition, let me see. What else do we have? It's pretty much basically the same samples being revolved all over again, all over again. Yeah, so the main sample has been used in different instances, as you can see. And of course, this sound and this marimba sound, or kalimba rather, and the coconuts banging each other. And which the same sound has been laid by using this sound, and that's how the instrumentation looks like. The sample that I showed you earlier creates and provides a direction for the track, as you can clearly see, which where I use the sample to introduce a hook for the track as well. And towards drop 2 phase 1, at the end of drop 2 phase 1, I have introduced this sound as well. Yeah, so if we have a look over here, it's a sakura patch. Again, it's a sakura patch. Oh no, it's not. Holy shit. Oh, so apparently it's from Serum. It's pretty basic, to be honest. Yeah, there's delay, reverb, or filtering being used, an equalizer, and then of course, yeah, a sine wave is being used, and these macros, of course, controls most of these effects that has been introduced, specifically the filter and the mix level of the reverb and the delay. Yeah, so that's that, and I have modulated that towards in this region. Yeah, sounds pretty nifty. So that's kind of how like the instrumentation looks like. A buttload of reverse samples and synths and various types of instruments which complements the samples that have been used. So there we go, gentlemen. So that's how fragments look like. I'm going to keep on making song breakdowns. I have quite a bit of tracks that are going to be released within this year, and hopefully I'll be able to teach you guys something valuable with the production techniques that I use. And yeah, so that's how fragments look like. Yeah, so in terms of the processing, if we have a look, it's pretty basic. I'm running all my drums through a drum bus, which you can see over here. I'm using C2. By the way, Fab Filter plugin bundle should be my favorite bundle for mixing and mastering. So I'm using this for my drum bus, and then I'm using a clipper. So that's kind of the bass looks like. Oh, sorry, the drums looks like. Other than that, I don't have much buses going on except for my drums. The rest is pretty much basically EQing and a lot of filters, um, and of course side chaining, saturation and side chaining. As I told you earlier, I use LFO tool for side chaining. Triggering the plugin by using MIDI out, which is over here, and then if we go to the main sub, there we go. Here it is. So basically, LFO tool is being triggered by each of the hits, the kicks and the snares, and then the MIDI out is being used to trigger on top of each of the kicks and the snare hits. Yeah. You know, I have my sub, which is over here. There we go. If you have a look at the sub chain, there's a mono compressor going on, LFO tool, a wave shaper to bring out the harmonics a little bit, and then the Pro Q3 to EQ what I want, and then another wave shaper, and then another EQ to control the waveform, and EQ out what I really want, and then a clipper to prevent to gain stage. There we go. So thank you guys for joining my first ever track breakdown. This was a little weird, to be really honest, because I'm not used to doing this, especially in English, to be honest. But this is my first try bringing a track breakdown for you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed and hopefully learned something, and I'll be making plenty of track breakdowns for this year, because I have quite a bit of music that has to be released within this year, so hopefully more track breakdowns. And I'm trying to introduce my face to the video as well. I'm working on getting my GoPro running, so hopefully I'll be able to do track breakdowns as well as do some live streams on Twitch or maybe on YouTube. So those are kind of like the plans, and let's meet with another breakdown. Thank you.